Masquerade, we're seeing all kinds of different poetry. Last week on Thursday, we had an introduction to poetry where we talked about why I teach poetry the way I do. We looked at 4 or 5 poems, beware, do not read this poem, kidnap poem, the power of poetry, all of those, you remember, right? We talked about how the meaning of poetry is part what the author gives us and part what we take from that. So it's a combination of those two. I wanted to look today at some of the types of poems that we see, especially in Bronx Masquerade, so that when we're looking at some of the poems later on, we can say, oh, well, that's this kind of poem because of this rule. So that's kind of why I wanted to go through this today. First of all, concrete poems. Just raise your hand real quick if you've ever heard of a concrete poem. Nobody. Okay. What about shape poems? Okay, so some of us remember what shape poems are. From back in elementary school, whatever sentence you wrote about an apple, maybe you make it do the outline of an apple, or you write a paragraph about school and then you put it on the paper to make a school building, stuff like that. Concrete poems are kind of the same thing, but they go a little bit further, a little bit more professional than that. Now, my board was not working for me earlier. Let's see if it works well this time. Okay. I've got a definition here. You don't have to write the whole definition, but I do want you to write this if you're taking notes. Concrete poems means that the way it looks on the page helps you to understand what it's about. The way it looks on the page helps you to understand what it's about. And again, you can go back and watch this video later if you're writing slower or it took you too long to find your pencil just now. I've got a full definition here. Concrete poems are arranged in a pattern on the page in a way that helps the reader understand it better in some way. So like I said, the way it looks on the page helps you understand it. Concrete poems usually, important word, usually, do not rhyme, do not always have a distinctive rhythm. Got a poem over there on the side. Can you read it? Most of you can read it as far as saying tree and trunk, but then you start saying things like roses. That's not roses, is it? Roses only has one S. So what does it say? Let's see if I can get it to work this time. I could not earlier. Good, it works. All right, so you see the tree part there. You see the trunk. Okay. All right, that looks a little bit more like a drunk mushroom or something. Let's say it looks like a Christmas tree. So what's that at the bottom?
Presents.
Presents? Or decoration?
No. You've got tree, you've got trunk. Normally, because you remember this from biology last year, what's under the ground? What part of the tree is underground? Roots. Okay, so if you look, we have the word roots. We've got R-O-O-T. Okay, so it's not doing it exactly right, but. And then what do we have? Keep following that pattern. S-Y-S-T-E-M-S, root systems. Whoa, okay. Did that just blow your mind? All right. So whoever it was that wrote this poem, they wanted you to understand the parts of. If they had just put tree, trunk, root system on a piece of paper, it wouldn't really have been a poem anymore, right? Just related words. But instead they put it on the page just so that we would see what it was supposed to be. Oops. All right. You want to see another concrete poem? Sometimes it's not the entire poem that's written in a concrete manner. Sometimes it'll just be a line or two. This particular line was about halfway through a poem that had like 30 or 40 lines to it. I think it had 36 lines other than this. Giselle, can you read that?
Rain is falling down and the river is rising high.
Very good. She didn't mess up the word falling, even though falling only has 2 L's, and this one has 3. And the word rising took her a second, but she got it too. Rising only has 1 S in it, but this one has 3. So, how were you able to know that you didn't go from rain is fell, falsing high? How did you know? Didn't sound right, first of all. And if you look, kind of like goes that way and then back up, right? So the poet that wrote this one, do you think this is good? Do you like it? Thumbs up? Thumbs down? You didn't like it? Kind of to the side? Okay. The poet that wrote this one had a much longer poem, turned it in for a professor to look at it for college because it was a contest, a poetry contest. The professor looked at the other 30-something lines. This is crap. This line, however, is wrong. So this line is coming in about 20. Page 22, the poem that Raoul wrote. If you remember, it was in the shape of the Z, and we were mentioning kind of towards the end of class yesterday that some of you hadn't read it. Still, story of Zorro, what did he do? He robbed the bank or stagecoach or whatever. Yeah. Used this, okay, that's not one right. He used his sword and just did a real quick Z. It might not be a perfect Z, but it's kind of what he did. Raoul put his poem, Zorro, in the shape of a Z. To kind of go back to that same idea, that same concept. To remind people of who Zorro is, what was important. So the way this looks on the page, that adds to the name. Well, it's the only part of the name, but it's added to it. Any questions so far? Okay, before you even read it, you know what this one is, right? Star. Okay. If you wanted to read it, you might see clue words like sparkle and nighttime sky, blinking and light shining, and you might notice all of those words and think, oh, it must be talking about a star. Or you got it all the way to the bottom and you see the ST and then the AR way down there. But you can just look at it and you already know, hey, it's about a star. So it helped add to the meaning, right? Particularly, I don't like this one because of some problems with it, like dreams. I don't like the way that dreams is split. Twinkle, they didn't even split it in the right syllables, you know, TW and inkle. Kind of threw me off a little bit there. And all right is not spelled that way, but yeah, whatever. This one was not mine. I found this online looking for concrete poems. That's one of the examples. Okay, want to see another? See if this one blows your mind.
It's a cat. It's a bunny.
The bunny. It's a cat.
Okay,
It's a
the
cat.
title of it is Concrete Cat. There's a Do you? I'm going to put that down before I write on this. Do you see ear? An ear?
Yeah.
And you see the eyes?
No. I mean, yes. Whisker.
Whiskers? Mouth? Okay, so I'm a horrible artist, but you can still kind of see it, right? Okay, you've got a dish here. Maybe it's like food on one side, water on the other. I've got dishes like that for my cats too. It's stripes. Everybody in the first class that I showed this to this year said, hey, it's Tom and Jerry. And I'm glad that y'all know who Tom and Jerry are, but Tom the cat does not have stripes. This cat has stripes.
It does?
Do you notice anything else, anything special about this poem?
Mouse. There's a word upside down.
If we got the mouse.
Who said mouse first? What about the mouse?
Jerry's not on that.
Okay, you see the mouse right here? Tail.
That looks
And
like
I'll make it
Jerry.
neck.
The mouse is dead.
Blood.
Yeah, the mouse is dead. How do you know he's dead?
Because it's upside down.
He's upside down. He's all, you know. Okay, sorry, I went Thriller for a minute. But yeah, the mouse is upside down. The mouse is dead. Cats eat mice. Cats kill mice. Cats sometimes bring a dead mouse to you and give it to you as a present. Hide it in your shoe so that you find it the next morning. You know, whatever. Anybody have cats that do that?
No.
Just me?
I like
I got a dog like that.
See, my cat loves me, and my cat thinks that I'm getting too skinny. So he brings me stuff to eat every now and then so that I don't, you know, get too skinny. You don't believe that either, do you?
Tom can't catch Jerry.
So the poet that made this one put the mouse upside down just so that we would make that connection that the mouse is dead. Remember I was talking about how sometimes you can read the same poem at a different time in your life and get something else out of it? I think I first saw this one in college and I looked at it and I said, oh yeah, it makes a cat, big deal. Moved on to the next one. And then somebody else saw it and said, hey look, the mouse is dead. And I'm like, really? Wow, yeah, so it is, okay. I didn't notice that the first time I read it. First time I'm teaching this to 8th graders, guess what they said about the mouse? Not only is it dead, there's always one 8th grader that says it. Nobody in here sees it?
What?
Wait, what was the question?
It's poop.
There you go. There's always one 8th grader that says it. Usually there's 5 or 6 that think it, but one of them's going to be brave enough to say it. Because it's under the tail and near the litter box, they say the mouse has been eaten and pooped back out. And I'm like, okay, this is why I teach 8th grade, because you're not afraid of saying stuff like poop in class.
I didn't know that.
So what do you think about this poem?
Better
Cool.
than all the other ones. This is the.
Better than mine, one line, right? Yeah. I don't think that I would have thought to do this for a poem. I would not have thought of it. To me, it seems like these kinds of poems would be like for elementary school, but really, just having that one thing, that mouse, dead, upside down, that's genius. I never would have thought of it. One more example. I think this is the last one. Okay, you know what this sign is. No, it's not infinity. It's the and sign, right? Okay. Let me erase Zorro's Z here. Do you know what this symbol is called? The and sign, right? Did you know that at the top of your keyboard, all of those symbols that are with the numbers, there's meaning for those? There's an actual name for them? When you see this one, what's it called?
Star.
Most of you simply say star, right?
Yeah.
Because we would say it's the star sign, but there's an actual name for it. A-S-T-E-R-I-S-K, asterisk. That's the actual name of that symbol. How many of you have ever seen that word or heard that word before? A couple of you. It comes from that same root word as star. You've got the S, T, and the A, and the R that you still see in the word star. But since this is an asterisk, you know that all of those others have actual names, and it's not just the and sign. The name of that one is the ampersand. Wow, instead of saying the and sign, if you say the ampersand, doesn't that sound like you're more educated?
No.
Like you're smarter? Or maybe like you think that you're better than other people that don't know that?
So you say like,
When? Go ahead.
like you say something, then you say and, you say and person?
Normally you would actually say the word and, the same as you would normally spell out the word and, A-N-D. But if you're using the symbol and you want to actually say what it is, what the name of the symbol is, it's called an ampersand. If I say use the ampersand key, that's what I'm talking about. What is it? It's like shift and 7?
Yeah.
It's that one. I was taught to type without looking at the keys, so I have to stop and think. Alright, so when I was taught how to write, I was taught in cursive, and I know a lot of you probably weren't, some of you maybe. When I was taught how to write, if I ever used this symbol, I was taught to start here. And you make the loop here, and then go up and around that way. So that's the way that you're going to read it. You're going to start there. Let me see if I can make it look like an arrow here. Okay. Wow, that's a really bad arrow. But anyway.
It's like an 8.
So if you're reading it, that's the way you read. An and is simply an and, but an ampersand is much more grand.
Looks like an 8.
That's cool.
Exactly, it rhymes. Remember when I said concrete poems usually don't rhyme? Here's one that does. Okay, let's see if I can remember how to do this. Haha, okay.
Forgot some.
Okay. So, do all concrete poems have to not rhyme? They can. It's just usually you don't see them rhyme. I think that was the last concrete example I have. All right. Free verse poems. How many of you have ever heard of free verse? Usually a few hands go up on that. Okay. Free verse simply means no rules. You could write down all of this, no rhyme, no rhythm, no formal structure, or just say no rules, because that's basically what it means. Freestyle or free verse means that you create your own pattern, your own rules, or choose to use no pattern. One of my college professors said a free verse poem is not really a poem. If you want to make it a poem, you have to put it into some kind of a structure. The next professor I had after that said, forget what they said. Free verse poems are still poems. Most time in middle school and most times in high school even, if you're writing a poem, unless you actually make it rhyme or make it fit a certain structure, most of the poems that you feel naturally just come out free verse. If you want to go back and make it fit a structure, you have to make it fit it in a way that it doesn't take away from the meaning. And that's one thing that a lot of my students in the past 12 years have tried to do. When they try to make it rhyme, it doesn't make as much sense, or it doesn't have as much emotional feel to it. So sometimes you've got to kind of trade a little of that emotion with a little bit of the structure. I'm okay with free verse poems most of the time, as long as you're attempting to make it more poetic instead of just writing a paragraph and then cutting it into lines. You've got two examples of free verse poems early in the book. You've probably already read both of them. Shankara's poem, Bruised Love, about seeing her sister abused again. And then Brown Hands that Lupe wrote on page 38, talking about a baby. Both of those are examples of free verse because they don't have a set rhyme, they don't have a set rhythm, they don't have a set anything. There's no rules to it. It's just about the feeling and the emotion. Questions on free verse? Everybody understands that one okay? Awesome. Found poems, also called sampled poetry. This would be when you see a line or a movie title or song lyrics or anything that kind of inspires you to write something. If you write a poem with that as your inspiration, sometimes you might borrow a word or two or a phrase. For example, we were just talking about Bruised Love. If you remember, there was that at the end where it said imitation love that packs a punch. I might use just the words imitation love. It might be the title of the poem. It might be somewhere else in my poem. It might be the first line. Found poems take those samples, take those pieces, and create something new with it. Does that make sense? It's found because you find it somewhere else, but you take it to yourself and you make something new with it. If you sample too much, then it starts sounding like you just stole it, right? But if you're taking just a little, it's okay. I have some great examples of this from the past, from music from, back in my day, the 80s. MC Hammer's You Can't Touch This. It's kind of like taken from Rick James' Super Freak, and Vanilla Ice took Ice Ice Baby kind of from Queen and David Bowie, but if y'all don't know those songs, it doesn't matter, right? How many of you saw the new Ghostbusters movie? A couple of you, right? Have you also seen the old Ghostbusters movie? Okay, so when you're listening to the theme song, for the new Ghostbusters movie, did you hear pieces of the theme song from the old one?
Yes.
Who you're going to call, Ghostbusters, that kind of stuff, kind of echoed again. That was sampled. So they made a new song, but they used pieces of the old song in it, right? It's the same thing with poetry. You take pieces, you make something new with it. An example from our book, of course, is the first poem we read, Long Live Langston. We had quotes from 3 or 4 different Langston Hughes poems. Even had the title of one of them, Sweet Fly Paper of Life. We had the title actually used in the poem. questions on found poems? Do you remember the last line of Tyrone's poem on page, what was that, page 11? Okay, I didn't write it. Anyway, the last couple of lines where it says take 2 poems and call me in the morning. Maybe I'd take those 2 lines and I'd create a new poem and call it prescription poem. Maybe it's something like I've got a fever and the only thing to help it is lyrics and song lyrics and poetry, and the doctor prescribes me 2 poems and says call me in the morning. You know, something like that. That would still be considered a found poem. Taking something else that inspired me, creating something new with it. Everybody get that? Like I said, I'm moving fast today, so if you need help, raise your hand, slow me down a little bit. Or put up both hands and say, whoa. Yes, ma'am.
You go back like 2 slides.
Go back 2 slides. Let's see if I can.
No, that one.
Which one?
Yeah, that one.
That was only 1. You can't count?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, that's 1 slide. All right, any other questions while we're waiting? All right, there's one other type of poem, the 4th one for today. And it was called slam poems. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of slam poetry. 2, 3, 4. I'll get to it in just a second. It is kind of a rap. We'll get to that in just a second. You ready? All right.
I think she's typing.
All right. Slam poems. First of all, they're not meant to be read. They're meant to be performed. It's meant for you to stand up and perform it to your audience. And it's meant for the audience to listen to it, not to just read it off a piece of paper. So the way it's presented helps you to understand what it is, what mood it is, what feeling the author has, and what feeling hopefully you have from it. You're supposed to feel these kinds of poems, not just read them and not just hear them. You're supposed to feel them. Usually they have an urban theme. Do you know what the word urban means? What's it mean?
City.
Yeah, something to do with the city. I've heard people call these all kinds of different poetry names. I've heard them called ghetto poems. I don't like that term. I've heard them called hood poems. I don't like that term either. I'd really rather you use the term poetry slam or slam poetry. Mentioned over here that it's kind of like rap music. It's kind of like rap, but you take out the music part, right? A lot of times you still have rhythm. Most of the time you still have rhythm to it. Most of the time you still have rhyme, but it might not be a steady rhyme. It might be a very different kind of rhyme. It might be a lot of internal rhyme instead of external. And if you don't know what those are, we'll get to those soon too. But most importantly, you've got that forceful, varied speech pattern. Now what does that mean? It means what? Feelings when you talk. Which group was it that read the whisper, shout, thoughts turn inside out? Y'all don't remember that one? What's a poem? It was just last week. Yeah, yeah. And that was the first part of it, right? A whisper, a shout, thoughts turn inside out. If you guys stood up and read that one, or performed it, and one of you said, a whisper, and the next one said, a shout, and then somebody else said, thoughts turned inside out, that would be kind of presenting it like a slam poem. Had the rhyme, had rhythm, and then you had that forceful, you know, you're shouting the part that's supposed to be about a shout, you're whispering the part that's a whisper. Does that make sense? Okay. A lot of that speech pattern helps your audience to know what they're supposed to be feeling. I've got some great examples of slam poems that I can't share because of bad language and stuff like that. Because a lot of them do have bad language. Still. I also have some other really good examples that I can share with you, and I'm just going to upload them to Canvas so you can go and watch them on your own. Hey, I said I've got some I can share with you, and you can see them on Canvas. If you want to see others that have the bad language, hey, you Google it at home on your own time. I can't stop you at home, right? One of the examples from the book was attendance. That's the poem that Tyrone wrote at the very beginning on page 10. I don't have to reread that one, do I?
No. Yeah.
Just the way that he had like rhythm, but it wasn't every single line rhymed or anything. It was rhyme in the middle of some lines and at the end of some and everything else. You're not supposed to be eating in class. Put it away. Alright. That's the end of my presentation. Wow, now I can't even talk. You have an assignment, but today's Thursday. It's not due until Monday. I'll get to that in just a second.
Stop recording, Alexis.